Hello, my dear friends. Today I'm going to share a little story about my childhood. We were a family of 7, 5 kids, and we traveled most of the time. We lived on the road. We lived in a station wagon most of the time. We had as much as we could pile up on the top of the wagon, tied down with ropes, and then Mom loaded the inside of the car, and she leveled it out at as much as possible, and then she made the bed on top of it with all of our bedding. 4 of us kids laid across the back, side by side, and one, usually the youngest or the oldest, sat in the front with Mom and Dad. We worked in the fields. We followed the crops. Whatever crops were around, that's what we did. Picked fruits and vegetables. In those days, kids were allowed to work, and even in the school year, during the winter, we picked on the weekends and after school sometimes. When there were no crops, Mom worked as a motel maid mostly, and my dad, he drove truck and buses and taxi cabs to support our family. We were dysfunctional family, and my family was pretty much in an abusive life. But there were so many times in my life that really we seemed and felt like normal. We entertained ourselves on the roads. We sang tons of songs. I remember the bear went over the mountain, and she'll be coming around the mountain. We just sang and sang and sang in the car. And we played car games, like we would read the signs and do the alphabet starting with A and find a sign that said something starting with A, and just, we were going on a trip and we bought an apple and a banana and so on. You have to remember it, everything. We taught each other in the back of the car with little notepads or coloring books and reading books and stories and stuff. We had entertained. When we stopped in the afternoon or evening, get it ready to call it a day, we usually stop in a campground or by a lake on the side of the road sometimes, whatever we could find. And we kids, all of his kids piled out of the car, and we got a ball or something and played catch or played typical games the kids used to play, red light, green light, red rover, come over, and all those games. Actually, it wasn't so bad. We had a lot of fun do that stuff. So we ran around and got crazy and got some of our energies out. Many, many times we stopped and we ate on the side of the road. And I can remember times when our meal was just a whole watermelon all cut up, or peanut butter and jelly crackers, and that kind of things. It was not the perfect life, but it was not that bad. And at that time, we didn't realize we were so poor. We didn't understand what poverty was. That's just the way of life. And I'm sorry, this camera is angled a little wrong. Um, when we lived in campgrounds, we built tents with old paint tarps tied across from one tree to another, and for a shelter. And we took the pine needles and gathered them all together in a big pile and made a great big bed for all the kids to lay on top of. Took our regular bedding, and that's what we slept under, on top and under. We cooked on a wood fire, and we cooked normal foods. We had oatmeal and cereals for breakfast, and usually sandwiches and soup for lunch. And then Mom cooks spaghetti and all the things that normal people would have for dinner, but not a lot of meat, usually canned meat. We would be able to get surplus commodities, and so Mom learned to cook with whatever she had. Lots of macaroni and cheese and spam. Um, but, learning how to do that stuff when we were kids, it taught us. It taught us how to survive. I can remember making fishing poles out of sticks and twine, and hooks out of, like, paper clips and things like that. And we used the cheese or peanut or butter or whatever for bait. We actually caught some fish, and usually we cleaned them and we ate them. We cooked them, and that was a dinner. Um, so when we were camping, we saw a lot of beautiful places. I wish I can remember those places we went as a child. I know went to a lot of national parks too. So anyhow, yes, we were poor, but we were free. We had so much freedom and saw so much, and life was tough, but we were taught to be survivors. And all of us kids grew up to be survivors. My brothers and sisters all found people to truly love, and they raised their children in mostly one area. They're all up in Washington except one. I do have a sister in Texas, but all my brother and my other sisters are up in Washington State, and they raise their families, and they get together, and they're all pretty close. Unfortunately, I never got to be around them much because was in California. But my life, I shared a lot about my life, and already. And so, the thing about me was I never was satisfied in a sticks and bricks home. I took my kids camping every chance I got. And I spent, I don't know, most of my adult life moving around, just like I did when I was a kid. I think I had my dad's traveling blood in my veins. And I tried to make roots, and I tried to find love, but it just really never happened for me. So, having tried and failed, I left behind the things I owned and the city life and the bad relationship that I last was in. I didn't belong there. When I left Modesto, California, 4 years ago, I struck out on my own in a little car. And you've heard some of the story about that. And if you really want to know what my life was like for the last 4 years when I started in a car, you can watch the video on Bob Wells' Cheap RV Living. It's called Dee Living in a Car on $800 a month. And then, of course, I moved into a cargo trailer about a year later. And then you know about all my health problems. So, really, I've been a nomad all my life. I can share some other stories and things that we did as kids or throughout my life in another video. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you will like it and subscribe and share. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being my friend. See you next time.